Great. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. And welcome to the Economic Development and Special Development Projects Committee. Today is Wednesday, February the 24th, and it's 10:05, and happy Wednesday to all. And thank you so much for tuning in with our Special Development Projects Committee. And again, just a reminder for our viewer that we are still in our virtual world. So committees are being held virtually. The public can access the meeting, the virtual meeting, by going to council.nola.gov. We will be taking a 10-minute recess to receive public comment. I can't wait for us to be back in the chamber. So with that, I want to encourage people that are eligible to take the vaccine. Please make sure you make every effort to get an appointment to get the vaccine. That's the only way we can get back to our new norm. But with all that, I'll go ahead and have Victoria to do the roll call, read the agenda, and then we will take a 10-minute recess to receive public comment.
Thank you, Council Member. I'm going to read the agenda first. So our agenda is as follows: 1, roll call; 2, approval of the January 20th, 2021 committee meeting minutes. Number 3, a presentation, the New Orleans Green New Deal, an overview of the New Orleans Green New Deal program and funding opportunity. The vision of the Green New Deal is to provide a financial framework to catalyze investment in green projects that will promote outcomes related to climate action, green economic development, sustainability in the built environment, and economic justice. Presenter will be Damon Burns, Chief Executive Officer of Finance New Orleans. Number 4, other matters. Number 5, adjourn. We'll go to number 1, roll call. Councilmember Nguyen.
Present.
Councilmember Glapion.
Present.
Councilmember Giarrusso.
Here.
Councilmember Banks. Councilmember Brissett.
Present.
We have 4 members. We have a quorum.
So at this time, we'll take our 10-minute recess to receive public comment. So we will be back on at 10, right now it's 10:08. So we'll be back on roughly around 10:18. Thank you.
All right, Paul, are we ready?
All ready.
Councilwoman, whenever you are.
Welcome back to the Economic Development and Special Project Committee. So I'll go ahead and let me just get to the agenda. We did the roll call already. Should we do another roll call just to make sure that we have a quorum? We don't need a quorum, but because we're not voting on anything, but let's just for courtesy, let's just do a roll call. Victoria, can you do another roll call, please?
Absolutely. And we will need to vote on the minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Roll call. Councilmember Nguyen,
Present.
Councilmember Glapion, Councilmember Giarrusso,
Here.
Councilmember Banks, Councilmember Brissett. Councilmember Brissett.
I'm here. Yes.
Great. We have three. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Victoria. So I'd like to move to approve the January the 20th, 21 committee meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
So it's been moved in second. All approval.
Aye.
I just had a moment of thing. Thank you very much. So let's just go ahead and move into the presentation for today. Again, today we have a presentation from the New Orleans Green New Deal, and we have the Executive Director of the Finance Authority, Damon Burns. So Damon, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Council Member. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning to all of the council members and to the public. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Damon Burns, and I represent Finance New Orleans. Finance New Orleans is a quasi-governmental financial institution that was created by the City Council in 1968. And we were created to make an impact, specifically as it relates to affordable housing and economic development. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the, it was referenced as the New Orleans Green Deal in the intro. But I want to communicate to the council and to the public that title is a working name. And this report or this plan that we've been developing is a work in progress. And the title of Green Deal was always meant to be a placeholder, because as we began to work with C40 cities, they were working on green deals around the world, helping cities and other governmental agencies develop their own green deals. But the whole time we intended to come up with a name that's more specific to New Orleans. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan. And the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan is a continuation of the city's resilience strategy that was created back in 2015. So we felt that work needed to be continued, and there's a foundation for why we're doing it. So I'm going to go through this presentation and explain a little background on the organization, and then jump into precisely what is involved in the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan. Next slide, please. Next slide. And as I mentioned, Finance New Orleans, we are part of the city of New Orleans. We were created in '78 to expand affordable housing and economic opportunities for citizens. We are governed by a 7-member board of trustees, which is appointed by the city council. Next slide. 2020 was a key year for us, as it was for a lot of us individually and many organizations. We were in the process of developing a long-term strategy and vision because we were hit so hard by Katrina, the Great Recession, and now COVID and everything in between. So because of those reasons, we've had to go back to the drawing board. We lost 95% of our asset base. And most of those assets came from mortgages that we invested in the New Orleans community. And Katrina severely disrupted us, and the recession has prevented us from growing back to what we once were. But COVID actually has given us an opportunity to completely rethink ourselves and what we can offer to New Orleans. So we spent a great deal of 2020 trying to accomplish some foundational work to set us up for a new vision. Next slide, please. And just a few things to point out. We received a grant in December 2019 from C40 Cities to actually build the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan. So they've helped us tremendously through that technical assistance grant. We also received a grant to study the issuance of environmental impact bonds. So we spent a great deal of 2020 doing research and development on what an overall system-wide finance plan needs to look like and how it looks on a transactional basis, from everything, including environmental impact bonds to green bonds. We also launched the Community Support Fund to support COVID relief. We completed a CEA between the City of New Orleans, Finance New Orleans, and the Louisiana Housing Corporation, which has empowered us to offer property tax exemptions and tax exempt bonds for qualified affordable and sustainable housing projects. We completed the first project, or at least gave approval to that first project in December, and we've since closed 3 transactions under that new program. So that's a testament to city agencies working together under the leadership of the city and being able to move quickly and responsive. I know we always want to put programs out as quickly as possible, and sometimes they just have to go through a process. But I am happy to report that we have started to see more activity on the affordable housing side. And lastly, we joined the American Green Bank Consortium, and that's key because there are only 19 entities around the country that are considered green banks, and we're one of them. And eventually there'll be hundreds of green banks, not only around the country, but around the world. So the fact that New Orleans is a part of this early group, this foundational group, is critical. And we're generally the smallest player in the room when we deal with other green banks or agencies around the country. But our voices are being heard, and we're developing strategy along with other cities around the U.S. right now.
Hey,
Next
Dave,
slide, please.
just to interject for a little bit on the affordable housing and just for our view to understand. So FANO is a quasi-agency. When you guys say you help with development, are you helping financing through a loan or through a grant, or is it both? Or
We
just
primarily, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
no, go ahead.
We primarily do it through loans,
Mhm.
but we also offer other incentives such as taxi or property tax exemptions,
Mhm.
also known as pilots. And there are opportunities or occasions where we do provide grants, mainly on the single family side. But our capital is mostly debt capital, it's loan capital. And tax exempt bonds tend to be cheaper than other forms of debt. So that's the incentive of borrowing from Finance New Orleans, is that developers and businesses can access special types of debt financing that are only available for qualified projects.
And when you mention loans, do you have like competitive or attractive interest rate that really brings the developers to the table for FANO?
Yes, the interest rates are typically dependent on market conditions. But the premise behind us offering debt financing is that it's usually below market. It's below what a developer would be able to get at a private financial institution. And that's why they come through us.
Clarify.
Yes.
Okay.
So all of those milestones last year led us to the launching of a new vision, which you'll hear more about in the coming months. But we wanted to focus on being more resilient, we were hit hard as an organization, and we thought about once we rebuild, how are we going to make sure we're sustainable and resilient, not just on the climate side, but just completely. We want a completely resilient city and organization. Next slide, please. Our new vision statement is to create a resilient New Orleans with opportunity for all. Next slide. And we've also adjusted our mission statement from what it was originally in 1978. We've altered it to include climate resilience as a part of our mission. So affordable housing, economic development are still at the forefront, but climate resilience is the third leg of that stool. And ultimately, we want to create jobs, wealth, and opportunity for our community. Next slide. We also develop core values that are important to the city, and this is what our staff is being trained to operate on. And when we recruit people to come work for the city agency, we want to make sure that they're mission-oriented, just mission-oriented individuals. So dedication to the community, strong ethics and integrity, collaboration, equity, professional and efficient service. We believe government agencies can operate as efficiently as a private organization. Next slide. We also developed 4 high-level goals for our 10-year strategy, and that's use climate resilience to physically transform New Orleans, to create economic opportunities, build wealth for community reinvestment, and grow as an agile and innovative organization. All these categories contain many sub-items, but these are the high-level strategies that we're keeping in mind on a daily basis. Next slide. Our core programs based on our new mission and vision are sustainable housing, which includes multifamily and single family. We just talked a little bit about multifamily. We're rolling out a green mortgage product in the coming months. You're going to hear more about that green mortgage product, as well as the sustainable developer program. We're going to continue to grow the types of incentives and financing opportunities we provide. We're expanding into green buildings and green infrastructure. We can have all the housing we want. It can be the best housing in the world, but if the community around it, the infrastructure, the buildings, the commercial buildings are not up to standard, then it's truly a wasted investment. So we're going to be more holistic as we move forward with our community investments. Next slide, please.
Dave, when you mention single homes developers, is there a number of the size of the project that they're building on? 10 single homes, or it depends on?
For a developer, you mean?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Okay. Yeah. So for our program, the minimum to receive a pilot incentive is 10 units. To do a bond deal, it usually requires about 30 units, but we're also trying to figure out a way to help small and emerging developers that are looking to do 5 units at a time, that are just trying to get their businesses off the ground, and they want to be a full-time developer, or they're trying to build a development company. So there's a spectrum. Right now, we're dealing with 10 units and up, and most of our projects are in the 30 to 50 unit range.
Okay.
Yes. This is a snapshot of our business model. It shows how we depend on capital markets, tax credit investors, bond investors, impact investors to help us create the types of programs that we offer to our local community. So you can view Finance New Orleans as a window to the larger capital markets, and we package those programs so that they can be useful to the local community. Next slide. And our big high level goal is to create a $1 billion community impact by 2030. And again, we're going to issue green bonds. We're looking at environmental impact bonds. We're talking to local commercial institutions about the roles that they can play in helping us finance these critical resilience projects. So our goal is $1 billion, but we think more can be done. It's still an aggressive goal, but that's what we deserve. New Orleans deserves to have aggressive goals that are aspirational, and we're working hand in hand with other agencies around the country that have similar goals, but this is unique to us, and our team is working daily to reach this number. So we're on our way. We close those first 3 pilot projects that I mentioned, but we have a very, very long way to go. And we intend for this $1 billion to be focused on sustainability and affordability. Next slide, please. So everything I just talked about is excellent. The community loves it. The community outside of New Orleans, they've been encouraging us. But one question that we continue to receive is where's the support from the city and other agencies? Are we in lockstep with the city? And of course, we've been getting the city's blessing on this direction and trying to build out the mechanisms and the infrastructure that's necessary to offer these types of programs. So we decided to use the grant from C40 cities to develop a plan that was an extension of the city's resilience plan that was developed back in 2015. So we see this as a continuation of work that was already done. That original plan was light on details as it relates to financing. How do you finance solar panels? How do you finance green infrastructure or stormwater management? There are many ways to do it, but it was not outlined in that plan. And there was really no game book, no real game plan for all agencies to adopt this type of financing strategy. And that's what this plan does. It brings together the city and all of the sub-agencies as a public sector collaborative to focus on making New Orleans more resilient and to have an actual finance plan that allows us to accomplish it. Next slide. What is the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan? Again, in 2019, we received a grant from C40 cities to help develop this strategy, and many public agencies have participated in the build up to this point. We still have a few more milestones to accomplish, but so far there's been great collaboration, and agencies are working together to help figure out how to get projects done. And Finance New Orleans sits in the middle as a conduit agency that we have flexibility to work with other governmental agencies as well as the private sector. Mm-hmm. So we're going to play a key role in this new plan, but this plan is only as good as all of the agencies participating. Next slide. The plan includes a few categories. The main categories is a project framework. So what's a framework for the types of projects that we want to see? We want to see sustainable housing, green infrastructure, community solar, electric transportation, electric charging stations, and the list goes on and on, the types of things that we need in New Orleans and the types of projects that will help us physically transform. It also outlines a financing policy that instructs agencies on how to issue green bonds and how to access other types of green financing tools. And then lastly, it's the Green Finance Working Group. The Resilient New Orleans Working Group is how that should read. But that working group consists of all the agencies. We plan to meet on a very frequent basis and report back out to the public on our progress. And the next slide outlines the process that we'll go through as a group. And it really all begins with community and stakeholder engagement and goes through a life cycle. And we expect this life cycle to go on and on for some time. But research and development, pipeline development is where the working group will spend its time. So we're building a pipeline of projects that fit the new framework, the Resilient New Orleans framework. And we're working hand in hand with the city, private sector players, local companies that have an interest in this space, and working on creating a pipeline of projects to demonstrate what can be done. So that's our first order of business, but this is the process which we intend to undertake. Next slide. Here are the outcomes. We want to see more affordable and sustainable housing. We want more green jobs. We want stormwater mitigation, community awareness and action, which is really a top priority on this list. The development or the deployment of green technology. So as we talk about new types of projects, such as community solar or stormwater infrastructure, that's deployment of technology and that's deployment of jobs. Somebody has to go out and build those opportunities or actually install the equipment. So we're using the traditional financing methods, but adding the green component to it in an effort to create jobs and to create that physical transformation. And
So
lastly, we want to
just for the viewer to understand, when you say green, because many times people don't understand when we say green, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on green jobs?
Sure. And green can mean a number of things. It's a bit of a buzzword, of course, in these times, but when we say green, we mean projects that reduce CO2 emissions, or technologies that reduce CO2 emissions, or create solar energy. It could also be a nature-based solution, such as a permeable pavement in your driveway or rain barrels. So there are many low-tech ideas that still qualify as green tech, but just as effective, nature-based ideas, and then the digital technologies as well that can be deployed. It just depends on the type of interventions that are financed, and there's a very long list of the types of improvements that can be made at the homeowner level, that can be made at the multifamily level, and the institutional or business level. So it's going to look different, but there's a menu of improvements that can be made, and all of those improvements generally requires someone or a company to go out and make those improvements. So whether it's installing solar panels, installing permeable pavement, or building a community solar farm, that is a job creator, and someone has to go out and do it. So we're spending time developing local companies through a workforce training program, and we want to put them directly into action on these projects that we're financing. So those are our goals right now, and DBE is of course a big part of our requirements.
So in a nutshell, basically green jobs provides community sustainable living, where just for the average citizen, that those measures are put in place to reduce energy costs. So homeowners are not paying high energy costs with the solar panels. That if you live in an area that may be prone to flooding, those measures are put in place to protect communities from flooding.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Just want people to understand, because I think green jobs is new for many residents, particularly in the city of New Orleans. And I know we have a lot of areas that suffer from flooding. And this is how you could actually help address flooding in your community. Because I know we've been working to put rain barrels in the east, particularly areas that property that floods all the time, and educating people that there's ways that you could actually store water where rainwater doesn't have to drain at that moment, but you could reuse them and help reduce your water bill as well.
Yes.
Okay.
That's precisely what we're trying to accomplish. And there are some private companies already doing that work here in New Orleans, but we need a lot more, and we need a lot more workforce if we're going to reach the type of scale that's necessary to achieve physical transformation of the city. So we're taking climate, which is one of our biggest challenges in the city, and using it as an opportunity to grow. It's using it as an opportunity to transform and create jobs. That's the intent.
Got it.
Next slide, please. Here's a shot of what it looks like on the ground. This is a neighborhood in mid-city, but these are the types of interventions, and this is how it looks. Energy efficiency retrofitting. You know, those things are generally inside of the home that you don't see outside, but those things can drive down the cost of housing, which is important in a city like ours, which has a high level of energy poverty. Hurricane-resistant roofing. We went through Hurricane Zeta just a few months ago, and I think that was a good reminder of how powerful and devastating hurricanes can be and how much we need to protect ourselves. Electric vehicles. I talked about permeable pavement, solar energy production and storage. Storage is a big opportunity for us because once you produce the solar, how do you keep it? And that's a big issue. That's why it hasn't been completely, I won't say commercialized, but it hasn't reached mass scale acceptance just yet because there's no way to retain that storage. So those are opportunities for local startup companies to create these technologies too. So there's contractors, there's startups that can benefit from this, and there's large companies out there as well that can benefit from this type of investment. And you mentioned rain barrels and gardens. So we expect to deploy these through our mortgage program, but also through other programs. And we want to see this throughout the city and all of our communities so that it can feel more protected, particularly our most vulnerable neighborhoods. Next slide. And lastly, here are the next steps in this process. In March, we're seeking approval from the city council or seeking your support of the Resilient New Orleans Finance Plan. Then we're also seeking Mayor Cantrell's approval through an MOU, which would empower Finance New Orleans and other agencies to begin doing this work. And it would also show the markets at large outside of New Orleans that we're coordinated and that there's a consistent effort from the city and all of its sub-agencies. And then all of the working groups are coming together to approve that MOU at their own board levels. The working group will resume its work in May 21, and that's when we'll focus on those pipelines and or that pipeline of projects to get a few demonstration projects done. And then we also intend to have some sort of public reporting mechanism. We think this meeting or some other city council meeting will be a good place to do it. So we don't have to create another public meeting. But we want the community to be involved. We want the community's feedback. We saw community engagement and feedback is a big part of the process for getting these projects done. So we expect this to be a lift from everybody, and the community is at the forefront. So we want to make sure that we're available and present and accountable as well. And this is the last slide in the presentation. Thank you for your time and your energy and supporting this type of work. I know the city council has been pushing us and encouraging us to move in this direction. So we're going to keep, moving ahead, and we welcome any feedback or suggestions on how we can best accomplish this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. Thank you for the presentation. And again, once you guys are ready for the meeting with the community, you know that we'll be happy to partner with you guys to create those opportunities for you to connect with members in our community. And I appreciate the work that has been put in to really move our community forward. But I also wanted to thank Hunter Thomas, who is my designee appointment to FANO, for his commitment and time in serving the residents in District E on my behalf. But I have a question for you. So I know you talked about, working with developers. Has FANO thought about working with individual property owner who owns property but been struggling to get back and maybe have some challenges getting access to capital through the free market or the private market? Because I know in my district we have a good number of blighted property, and I'm just thinking of ways on how do we help individuals that still owns their property but are just struggling to get access to capital.
So let me make sure I understand you right. You're asking about people that are in existing homes, they're already in a house, and they want to make some improvements.
Improvement, if not, address the blighted property that they own, that they have not, they struggle to get access to capital.
Well, one of the beauties about the new Green Mortgage Program is it allows us for the first time to offer financing to existing homeowners. So if you're already in the home and you want to make green upgrades or even moderate improvements inside of the home, then our financing package allows for it. Blight is that we consider that a different category, and normally we're working with developers on reducing blight or to build new supply. Our financing program has limits in terms of how much the homeowner can finance. So blighted properties generally don't qualify because it goes beyond moderate improvements. But if someone's already in their home and they want to make an improvement on their own property and for their street, because every improvement by a homeowner is an improvement for your neighbors too, especially as it relates to stormwater management. So once we're able to focus on existing homeowners and new home buyers, we can start to develop solutions for individuals that may own blighted properties. But right now, blight reduction and development, our focus is on the developers.
You what? I'm sorry to catch the last part.
Our programs are for blight removal or reduction is focused on the developers and not the individual homeowner.
So we do it for developers, but we don't. The program is not designed for individual property owners that own blighted property.
not blighted. It can be a moderate rehab, but not blighted. And the only reason because of that exists, council member, is because our programs are financed through FHA and Freddie Mac. So we have rules that are passed down to us, and we try to massage those rules as much as possible to create community access. But there are just some limits on what we can offer, but that doesn't mean we can't create a solution in the future. But generally, our best solutions come through federally supported programs like
So-
FHA mortgages.
For an individual property owner who is living in their property and would like to make improvement and be more sustainable, more green, then they are eligible to apply to FANO to,
Yes.
for some capital to make those improvements. Is
Yes,
there a cap in reference to the amount of loan that they are eligible for, or just based on what type of improvement they're making?
Well, right now, our focus is on families making up to 140% AMI. So that's about $99,000 a year. And there are FHA limits based on income ranges. So I don't have the exact limits in front of me, but when a homeowner goes to the table, the lender, one of our participating lenders, lets them know how much they can spend per project. But there are FHA limits that are set, and Freddie Mac has limits too, that are imposed upon us. There aren't limits that we set, but we have to follow those guidelines.
Okay, all right.
But also, it's worth noting that our focus is on families making 140% AMI and below. But this green mortgage program, over the long run, is for all New Orleanians, because everybody in New Orleans needs to make resilience improvements. And these types of programs just aren't being offered by private financial institutions yet. We hope they do. That's part of the reason we're doing this, is to spark more green financing from traditional financial institutions, but it's just not readily available at the moment.
Any questions from my colleagues? So I hear no question. Victoria, do we have any public comments?
We do have one public comment from Dawn Abear regarding the Green New Deal in communities. New Orleans East and the Lower Ninth Ward contain the largest amount of land mass, not forgetting the area closest to marshland and water and environmental concerns. The outcomes in relation to climate action, green economic development, sustainability in the built environment, and economic justice are all very important to these communities. Will any incentives be provided for projects in these areas? In addition, will potential projects be shared with community members?
Damon, you want to answer that?
Sure. Yeah, the short answer is yes. All the communities across New Orleans are important to us, but we know there's some that need more help than others. So one of the things we're doing with our green mortgage program, and we haven't set the guidelines yet, but we're identifying target neighborhoods. And I talked about that at a past council meeting, but we're identifying target neighborhoods where we'll give a bonus incentive for families that are inside of those target areas. And potentially there will also be development incentives for developers who are building in those areas. As it relates to the community feedback, our board meetings are public. So any project that we do, we put it before the public before we make the investment. And then through the Green or the Resilient New Orleans Finance Working Group, we plan to come before the council on a regular basis to let the community know what we're doing, what we're working on, but you can certainly engage with us directly.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Don, for that comment. So I think we are completed public comment. If there's no other questions for Damon from my colleagues, I want to thank Damon for coming on to the Economic Development and Special Project Committee meeting and presenting on the New Orleans New Deal. We hope that today's presentation has provided you and the public more information about the Green New Deal. And you'll be hearing more about this Green New Deal, not just at the committee level, but also in communities where there will be a working group set up to engage community in the deal to make sure that neighborhoods are being sustainable. So Damon, thank you so much for your work. I appreciate your effort and working with all of our organizations and councils in reference to building sustainable and green developments.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to the public for your time.
No problem, appreciate it. So colleagues, we are now on number 4, other matters. Do we have any other matters to attend to? If no other matters, number 5 is adjournment. I'll move to adjourn. Do I have a second? Jay, I see your lip moving. So it's okay to.
He's seconding. I don't know what's going on with his audio.
Yeah, I can't hear you. So thank you so much, Joe. So it's been moving second. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Much, colleagues. Thank you. Have a nice Wednesday.